Middle Eastern kofta, all wrapped up in a warm pita bread, super delicious, and usually done with lamb, but I'm going to show you can make them with kangaroo. Kangaroo is a meat that is super high in protein. So we're going to mince everything together, and I love kofta because you can add lots of different bold flavours to it. I'm going to start with some coriander. So we want most of this coriander. I'm just going to leave a few sprigs for a garnish later on. And I've also got some parsley. Again, just reserving some sprigs for the garnish, and the rest, stalks and all, go into this. And then in it goes. To this, I'm going to add half an onion. I like to use a red onion for this. I'm also going to use the other half later on as a garnish. Pickled onions, fantastic with our roux koftas. And some typical spices that go into a kofta mince. I have a combination of allspice, some chilli, and some ground cumin. Okay, in with our roux. I've got about 500 grams of roux steaks, and you can see how lean this meat is. I mean, this is fantastic, just grilled on a barbecue, a couple of minutes on each side, delicious as is. I think it's one of those proteins that we should be eating more of because it's readily available and it's just delicious. Okay, I'm just going to roughly chop it, and you can see how tender this meat is. It won't need long at all to cook on the grill once it's been minced. Okay, I like to cut them into about 3 centimetre pieces. You don't want it to be too chunky as it goes into the food processor because I want to mince this. I'm going to be pulsing it as opposed to pureeing it. We don't want that. We want a little bit of texture. So into 4s and pop that into our food processor. And some seasoning, a good pinch of salt, and I always like some pepper. All right, lid on, and I'll pulse the food processor until we have a lovely mince. Done. This is looking really good. I want to show you the consistency of this mince. See how it's slightly sticky, and we can form that into a kofta quite easily. All right, I'm going to pop this into a bowl. Just remove that blade. Smells so good with all of that onion and herbs and the spices. A good tip is to have some water on standby, just like you're making any meatballs. Just wet your hands, and by doing that, it won't stick to your hands. Now, usually with kofta, you would wrap this around a skewer. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to keep it really simple. I'm going to make them into that distinct kofta shape, which is an oval. Just like that. And I'm going to continue making these. I'm going to oil them, and then they're going on the grill until they're charred nicely. Okay, now while they're cooking, let's get onto a very quick onion pickle, a delicious addition to this kofta. In a bowl, I'll add half an onion, and you want to cut this as thin as you can get it. Nice thin strips of this red onion, and just break them up with your fingers into a bowl. And you could add the onion as is, but it's quite harsh and quite intense in flavour. So to mellow that down, a really quick pickle is the way to go. So a good pinch of salt and some vinegar. Got some red wine vinegar. Use any type of vinegar you like. And some sumac. I love it because it's got almost a tangy, almost tomato flavour to it. So a good pinch of that. And then using your hands, you want to bruise those onions and soften them. I'll leave this to pickle for about 4 to 5 minutes while the koftas cook. All right, these koftas are cooked to perfection, so we'll just leave them there for a moment while we start dressing the plate. I'm using some yoghurt. You could also use tahini. A whole tub should be sufficient. I'm just going to spread that on a lovely sharing plate, just like this. And I really like crunchy, refreshing vegetables with this. So we've got our cucumber. I'm just going to cut them into strips, and then on an angle, we'll put that in and around like that. Then our koftas can go in and around the cucumbers, and you want to serve this when they're still lovely and hot. And the onions, lots of onions, just in and around the dish. And these are pickled chillies. If you can get your hand on them, grab them because they are really lovely in a kofta, which is wrapped in some pitta. Then those herbs that we reserved, a few sprigs of coriander, and I have some parsley too, so a few sprigs of parsley. One more thing, and that's sumac, and I just think it tastes so good in a kofta wrap. That is a gorgeous way to serve up roux. Roux is super versatile, it's really good for you, and I would serve this with a big pile of pita breads, wrap up the koftas, scoop up the yoghurt, delicious.